everybody. Today we're going to continue talking about the 5 dysfunctions of a team by Patrick Lencioni and some actionable items you can take with the people that you lead in your life. Remembering that leaders go well outside of the business world. This isn't just for CEOs and business leaders. This is for you parents out there, for you coaches, for people who run groups. You guys, we're all leaders, and it's so important that we learn how to lead from a servant approach so that we can foster a sense of community and growth and working and striving towards the same goal. So last week we talked about the first dysfunction of a team. And the first dysfunction of a team is the absence of trust. So last week we talked about trust building activities and the importance of laying that foundation of trust first and foremost before going on to any other conversations. And I think it's so important to remind each other that it's not just one trust building activity and we're done and we never revisit it again. It is layering activity upon activity and discussion upon discussion to build that safe community and that community of trust. It's not just a one and done. It reminds me back to the time when I was an elementary school teacher and I taught first grade, and it was their first whole day of school after coming out of half-day kindergarten. And I couldn't just come in, say the expectations once and never say them again. We spent the first 2 weeks pretty much in school getting to know each other, learning about each other, talking about the routines and the ways and reading books before we dove into curriculum full force. So think about that as we're talking about building trust. It's not a one and done. It is intentional trust building activities to build the foundation and then continuing those along the way. So let's go to the next layer. After you have a foundation of trust, the next dysfunction that Patrick talks about is the fear of conflict. So if you don't have trust, there becomes this fear of conflict. And so often when there's a fear of conflict, people are not bringing up what's deep down and what they're thinking. They might be talking behind your back. They might be talking amongst each other. They're certainly not bringing it to the table if there's a fear of conflict. So once you have that foundation of trust, let's talk about how you introduce conflict to the team and how you encourage conflict. And first, I encourage you to start with an activity of simply this, and starting today with yourself. Conflict. When you hear the word conflict, what do you personally think and feel? And just write it down. I know that if you're anything like me, initially, before I did a lot of work, I associated conflict with something negative. When I heard conflict, I heard negative, fighting, disagreement, butting of heads. Like all of my descriptions were really negative. None of them were positive. Okay. And what I needed to do is I needed to reframe my thinking around conflict. And as a leader, that's so important for you to understand. We need to reframe our thinking about conflict. Conflict is healthy. We want to encourage conflict among our team. I don't know about you, but I don't want a team full of yes men and yes women. I want people that feel comfortable voicing their opinions in a respectful way and asking questions. And I want them to do it at the table rather than behind my back. And one of the ways we can do that is leading from the front, is encouraging that healthy conflict and reminding them that when it's happening, it's a positive thing, and thanking them for being so open and for being willing to share. Here's an activity that you can take back to them. Ask them what they think and feel when they hear the word conflict. Then ask them to go back to a time that they've experienced a conflict in their lives. And ask them to tell you and to tell the group how they handled it. You're going to learn a lot about each other here. Remember, because the foundation of trust is so strong, people are going to be open and willing to share. So this might sound like something, hey, go back to a time when you experienced conflict. And I want you to go back to that time now and notice, what did you see? What did you hear? What were you feeling? What were you doing? What were you saying? And come back and share with us. How did you handle conflict in your life? And as you go around the table, you might hear people say things like, well, I just put my head down and I didn't say anything. Or I ran away because I don't like conflict. Or I got really mad and said some things I regretted saying. Or I don't know, I didn't even know what to do, right? You're gonna hear how people on the team respond to conflict, and then you're gonna be able to guide them. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Okay, now what's important is those of us, I want to introduce some concepts to us so that we can handle conflict as a team in a healthy, safe place. One of those concepts is deciding on somebody that's called the minor of conflict, meaning there's a person on the team that has the courage and the confidence and the willingness to call out something that might be slipping away out of your attention. So maybe there's a person on the team that realizes, ooh, that sounds like there's a disagreement that we're starting to skate over. Or, I heard rumblings at the water cooler the other day, and I'm going to bring it up in front of the team meeting so that we can discuss this together. And decide on that role together. Who is willing? Who is willing to take charge of that and say, hey guys, we got to take a time out here. Here's what I'm hearing. Let's stop and work through that in a healthy way. So that's an option, is to assigning the role of a minor of conflict. And leader, it doesn't need to be you. Assign it to somebody on the team and encourage them, right? And then another really healthy way to engage in conflict, sometimes people don't know how to express what they're thinking or feeling. So you can introduce a simple framework. I feel X when X. I feel, I feel, name the emotion, when, name the action. So I'm going to give you an example. I feel inferior when people interrupt me. Listen to how this is different. So we've got I feel inferior when people interrupt me versus John, you make me feel so small. I can't stand it when you interrupt me. Right? Whoa. That's kind of like the conflict that's real uncomfortable, right? So when we introduce this framework of removing the blame from a person, so we're stating how we're feeling, and then we're stating what made us feel that way rather than who. And what I love about all these concepts is this goes beyond the business table. You can take this framework from the business table to the dinner table. So let's talk about it. Parents, how can you introduce this to your little kids, right? Teaching them to express their emotions. I feel sad when someone takes my toy. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm so proud of you. Thank you for telling me what you're feeling and what made you feel that way. Let's work together so that we can solve this, right? Teaching them at a young age that framework and celebrating the fact that they're open to sharing their feelings with you and modeling that in your conversations with your partner around the dinner table as well. And then let's do one last example for back to the business table. Okay, so I feel, name the emotion, when, name the action. Okay, I feel confused when we leave the meeting and I don't know what to do, right? Whoa, there might have been people on the team that were like, oh, I thought everyone knew what was going on. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing. Let's stop and figure that out. And let's go around the table and share what everybody's action items are before we leave, right? Simple, quick solution where somebody felt comfortable speaking up, was respected, and were able to take action and move forward. So, conflict. I encourage you, first and foremost, think about what you feel about conflict and how you respond, and then take it to your teams, take it to your people that you lead this week, and talk about conflict with them. Ask them how they handle conflict and introduce these concepts of minor of conflict and the framework so that you can continue to grow as a team.